Okay, we are recording. Hi, everybody. This is Kim Orlando from Traveling Mom, and I have Heidi Gollub with me to talk about her recent trip to Atlantis. She's traveling all the time. She's got kids of all ages. So I feel like I have the traveling mom here with me today. So thanks for joining me and being willing to share your experience. I know you wrote about it. You took a lot of wonderful pictures, but let's just start from the very beginning. You were excited to go to Atlantis. Let's start with that. Like, what was exciting to you about going there from Texas?
Oh, wow. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I have an 8-year-old. She's my youngest, and she is the only kid that has been allowed to watch YouTube, mostly because she's the fifth kid and she gets away with stuff that the other kids didn't get away with. But on YouTube, there are a lot of Atlantis commercials. So she's been asking for years, when are we going to go to Atlantis? And she would even say, like, if I thought, I'm going to take them out for ice cream, and I'd say, guess what? I've got a surprise. She would always say, we're going to Atlantis every time.
Oh, wow.
No, we're going to get ice cream. Like, and so she's been obsessed for years. And we even passed it. We went on a Royal Caribbean cruise that stopped in Bahamas, and she saw it in person. And that was even harder than, like, there it is, but we're not going.
There's the ice cream, but you can't have any. Yeah.
Exactly. So she was just thrilled, but didn't really believe it was true, because my kids have, we're still on spring break 2020. They have not been back to school since we came out of school in March of 2020. And so they've been at home, and she couldn't quite comprehend, like, it's okay to go out in the world now, because we hadn't up to that point. And not only that, but a pretty big jump, like, actually we're leaving the country.
The country. I mean, we were all kind of excited too, from the traveling mom perspective, like, oh, let Heidi go and let's find out what happened to her. So what did happen? Like, how did you prepare for the whole COVID screening? And I think you were saying that some things are changing. So let's just talk about that for a second.
Yeah, sure. Well, first, one thing that I just was so relieved, I had just renewed the kids' passports, because I've heard now that passport renewals are taking a very long time, because everybody is realizing that their passports had expired and they didn't notice. So I was just so thankful that I did that in February, and it only took a few weeks. And so literally you called about Atlantis and I was like, I've got passports. Like,
you know what, Heidi, let's just pause right there for a second. I have to do a plug for Traveling Mom, because the #1 article on Traveling Mom right now is about expedited passports, which tells me exactly what you just said. People have not looked at their renewal dates. They did not know it was going to take extra time. Go look at your dates right this second if you're watching this. Okay, go ahead. So you have your passports, you're ready to go.
You never know when Atlantis is going to call your name, and you need to be just ready to jump on a plane. So currently, to go to the Bahamas, and this may be changing soon, but it's still right now, you need a negative COVID test to be able to fly into the country. And it has to be, the test results have to come in within 5 days. Actually, I think the test has to be taken within 5 days of your arrival date. And that part really stressed me out, because the test is a lab test that I live in Austin, Texas. The lab actually ended up being in Nashville. So you have to take the test within 5 days. It has to potentially cross the country and then be tested. And it's very stressful when you have plane tickets and you're not 100% sure you're going to get your results in time. So for us, the testing is actually easy and free. But you do have to make an appointment, and that has to be the day before. So what our schedule looked like was, we were flying to the Bahamas on Friday. So the Saturday before, I could make an appointment to go drive through Walgreens to get our test. Then on Sunday, you drive through the drive-through pharmacy, and they hand you the test. It's basically a Q-tip, and you swirl it around your own nostrils. It's not painful or anything. You hand it back, and then drive on. So that process takes 5 minutes if you have an appointment. But then you sit and you wait and you check your email. And our results, so only kids a certain age and up need the test. So I believe it's 12 and up. My 8-year-old did not need a test. So my son, who's 14, and my son is not 14. Sorry, I told you I have a lot of kids. My son, who's 12, needed a test.
One of your kids is probably 14. Okay.
But our results came back on different days. So that was a bit stressful. His didn't come back until Tuesday. And then once you get your results, you have to apply for the Bahamas health visa online, and then pay for that, but they have to approve it, which can take up to 48 hours. So it's very close you can take your test on day 0, which for us was Sunday, flying Friday. You get your test results within 2 to 3 days. Then you have to apply online for the Bahamas health visa, which again can take 2 days. And you know this part of the story because I was texting frantically. I messed up the Bahamas health travel visa. I put the wrong date. I thought that Friday was one date and I accidentally put Saturdays. And so I was rejected because they said that would be day 6, not day 5. So I had to apply again. And, you know, meanwhile, Googling frantically, where can I get 24-hour test results? And the answer to that is you can, but it costs a couple $100. It's no longer free if you need them expedited.
Right.
But for me, it worked out. They were approved overnight, the travel visas, and we were good to go. But one tip that I have is to print out everything on paper, because they do ask you both at your departure airport and at the arrival airport to see copies of proof of that you have your visa and you have your negative test. And it's much easier to just be able to hand over all that paperwork than try to find it on your phone.
Yeah, that's a really, really good tip. It sounds like you needed a vacation after all that. You know what I mean? Like, really, that's very stressful, and it can't be daunting. But I think on the other side of that, the benefit is that you get to Atlantis and there's no lines. I mean, because it takes some coordination, it takes some planning. If you're good with details, I feel like that would not be a good trip for me. I'd be yelling at somebody. I just couldn't take it. But I think as long as you're willing to follow up with all of the details, you're fine. And the benefit is that you kind of have a place to yourself. And was that true when you got there?
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing, we needed our negative COVID test results to actually get on the property of Atlantis. And then once we were there, it was glorious. Everything that I read online was that the only downside about Atlantis is that it's really crowded because of all the cruise traffic, because cruises are stopping there. And that was not the case when we were there. Cruises are just barely starting up now.
Not the case right now.
It was pretty empty. They also generally sell day passes for locals to come in as well, but they were limiting those to 100 day passes per day. So, I mean, it really did feel like we had the entire place to ourselves. We went to the beach, and you can see from my pictures in the articles on Traveling Mom, the beach was pretty much empty. It was us, and maybe we saw 1 or 2 other people. So, I mean, it's like your own private island.
Well,
It was
it's true. And
incredible.
not only that, the extra things, there were lots of, well, not lots, but there were several excursions and special events that you could sign up for, still available even during COVID, and probably even more now. I don't know exactly what the number is right now, but you did, you freed the turtles, or I forgot what it's called, but did a cool thing like that. When normally I think you'd have to sign up months in advance, make all these reservations, but now it's more available, right?
Yeah, and all of the water park attractions were open. The only thing, they haven't quite gotten the number of staff back up to its original, because they were closed for quite a long time. So they're still hiring staff back. But the only way that we noticed any difference was that different rides were open on different days. So we got to do everything.
Okay.
But on some days, half of the water park was open, and on some days, the other half. So I mean, it worked out fine, but yes, there were no lines for the water slides, which actually is exhausting with small children, because they just want to do it again and again and again. And then you're just racing up all the steps.
Right.
Right.
Benefit. That's right. Yeah. I didn't think about that. Like, you just got to go over and over again. But okay, so then once you got there, so you had some tips about how to save money too, because it can be pricey, the food and everything. I mean, you know that you're paying for the park, and your lodging is including that, but it does not include food. It's not an all-inclusive resort.
Correct. The restaurants are amazing, and I have a friend who actually goes to Atlantis every year, and that's the one thing that she told me. She's like, it's like going to Disney. You don't just show up at Disney. You have a budget, you have a plan, you know it's going to cost a lot of money, so you save up for it. She said the restaurants are absolutely worth saving up for. Make your reservations before you leave home, and expect to spend $200 to $300 on dinner. But knowing that, even she said, like, we go knowing that we're going to spend that money on dinner, but then we basically just go to the grocery store and buy supplies and make our own peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch. And there's also a Dunkin' Donuts that you can walk to if you wanted to go out for breakfast. You know, there's cheaper options. There are, every room you get 2 refillable water bottles, and there's water stations throughout. So, I mean, that would be my strategy, would be, don't, the breakfast was nice. We had a lovely breakfast, but pancakes for kids was $20. So even with 2 kids, that's $40 just for pancakes.
Right.
And then, that doesn't keep them full.
And I'd be like, eat your friggin' pancakes. Eat every single bite of that pancake. You're not getting any lunch, or you take that pancake with you on the slide because that's your lunch too. You know what I mean? That's just, it just turns me into like evil mom.
I had to say that to myself, because I ordered an omelet with cheddar and they heard feta, and I got an omelet with so much feta in it. I was like, this is the most unpleasant breakfast I've ever had, and I made myself eat every bite.
Oh
I'm
my
like, this is
gosh.
breakfast, power through.
That's hilarious.
But it was rough, like a feta omelet. That's
a lot. Yeah, you must have been like
in the morning,
drinking a lot of water anyway that day. Okay, so there are some hacks there, and actually there are hacks that I use even on regular vacations too. If it weren't to Atlantis, we have lunch in the room, or a very simple lunch or a very simple breakfast. Sometimes actually what I'll do is flip it, is I'll go to lunch, have a really nice lunch someplace, and we have leftovers for dinner. That never really worked for my boys because they always had 2 dinners, so big eaters. But it's a thought anyway. So, okay, so we know the plan about the COVID testing. We know it's changing. Anybody who's watching, you got to make sure you always are reading and looking up the details, because they change all the time. I would recommend getting travel insurance. I have a family plan through Allianz. I think we have a little bit of information on Traveling Mom about that, but it's an annual family plan that covers everybody for a year. You can change the amounts that it covers, and then you don't have to worry about the individual trips, but we travel enough to make that make sense. So I think travel insurance is important. What else do you think is important for somebody who's thinking about going to Atlantis? I mean, really, from a mom's perspective, we just want to know, is it worth it? All that money, all that time, all that effort, is it worth it? And the look on your daughter's face says a lot. So you tell me, you tell us.
I think absolutely it's worth it. Even more so after a year plus at home, right? Like we last summer had a vacation to Scotland planned that we had to scrap. And so I felt like, well, this year we've got double the resources to put towards a trip. Atlantis, it was, so my 12-year-old, he's in middle school, he's a 7th grader, and he said the word amazing, I think 100 times in the first day. He just kept saying it over and over again, to the point where I was like, maybe find another word that also means amazing.
No, I like that word for a boy. It's 12. Love. That's
he
great.
was just so thrilled to be out, and the water park is incredible. It's humongous, and you just walk and walk and walk, and there's something to see everywhere you go. There's, it's the world's largest outdoor marine habitat. There's unusual fish and sharks, and there's an indoor aquarium in the tower that the Tower Hotel that's just free. It's in the lobby. You just go down and you walk through this huge indoor aquarium, and then you walk out, and some of the slides go, through the tanks, so you see the animals as you're floating by in the tank. And it's all so unique, and for something that, it's I think it's a once in a lifetime. I said that right after I told you about my friend who goes every year. But yeah, right. For us, it's definitely one of those things that you plan it like this is a special trip, and yes, it's going to cost probably more, like a cruise too. Cruises always end up costing more than you think when tips are added in and excursions, and you're like, oh, I'm glad I paid for that in stages and not all at once. But absolutely, I think it's something that my kids will remember forever.
It sounds like it. And this is not a commercial. Anybody's watching, honestly, this is just like the real deal. If you're thinking about going to Atlantis, Heidi went. Yes, she was hosted, so it did make a difference. It didn't hurt the pocketbook as much because the flights were covered, but it is really about being able to tell you firsthand whether or not it makes sense for you to go, or what to expect anyway, right? Depending on your budget and your expectations. So you would go back, it sounds like, not every year with all of your kids, but it's a big trip for them. Maybe it's a good one-off for you and one kid to do a couple of different times or something, if you don't have the budget to take everybody all at once. Anything else you want to share about going, or the return trip, or even like the people who work there?
the people who worked there were spectacular. Everybody was wearing masks, all, even outdoors, every single employee. And I actually went to a Starbucks outside by the pool, and the gentleman working there asked if I would put on my mask before ordering. And I was so glad that he did, because we'd been in the pool and I just wasn't thinking. But they are taking safety very seriously still. And obviously, we want to be respectful and protect them as well. So the one thing that I wanted to say though is just they offer excursions. There's a lot of things you can pay extra for, but honestly, my kids loved the water park so much. That's all they wanted to do. They wanted to be there from the minute we were done breakfast until dinner. It doesn't stay open late, so evenings are very relaxed on the resort. I think the water park closes around the time dinner starts. So just, if you go, I mean, really just getting there and paying for the hotel is a lot, but it's totally fine to just have no plans beyond that. Just go. There's so many pools, there's so many water slides, there's so many different areas for different ages. And they have that crazy raging river, which is not lazy. It's pretty intense. You're holding on to your tube. I did get flipped once. It's pretty, my kids wanted to do that. I think it takes about half an hour to do that loop, and they were like, again every time. So I kind of had to force them out of the water to eat meals. But there's enough to do, and then there's beaches on top of that, and my kids had no interest in the beach, which I had to also drag them, like, look at this water, it's incredible. Right. Like, yeah, we want to go back to the slides.
Yeah, because they can get a beach. You can go to, Galveston or somewhere, but it's not going to be Atlantis beaches. I understand that. But the water park, how could you possibly resist? It's really good to know that you are getting your money's worth with things that are included. I think that's really important. Yep. It sounds like you did that. Well, good. Thanks, Heidi. Thanks so much for the insight. Thanks for the articles. There's more information on Traveling Mom. There are photos that Heidi took that are fabulous, wonderful. There's a video on Traveling Mom if you want more information about Atlantis. Thanks, Heidi. We'll talk to you soon about your last 5 trips that you took to other places. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Take care.